As we mentioned, today is Giving Tuesday, a global day of generosity held every year on the Tuesday after Thanksgiving.
It all started as a simple hashtag in 2012, and it has grown into one of the biggest fundraising dates on the calendar.
But nonprofits are facing some headwinds this holiday season as family budgets are stretched. Mary Beth Collins is the executive director of the Center for Community and Nonprofit Studies in the School of Human Ecology at UW-Madison. Mary Beth, welcome to the program.
Hi, Mary Beth. Good to see you.
Thank you so much for having me.
So this has grown substantially in the 11 years it's been around. How did it all start?
Absolutely. Well, it was interesting to go back and review the history, but there was a nonprofit professional, Henry Timms, who's since become an author and led other organizations in New York City. He was working at the time at the 92nd Street Y, a community and cultural center in Manhattan. And he came up with the idea that for one day around that Thanksgiving holiday time, perhaps there could be a movement to encourage people to donate on a given day. And around that same time, other people were actually talking about a similar concept, I think in response in large part to the fact that consumers were spending so much money on Black Friday. And so the thought was maybe they could leverage that expenditure a little bit back towards the public good and designate a day to divert some of that or just add on to it some charitable donations.
Mm-hmm. Boy, and it's an international phenomenon, and obviously nonprofits, especially local nonprofits, really rely on it. But people who donate get something back from it as well. Isn't there a lot of research that shows if we do good things come back to us?
Yeah, there's actually some really recent social science research that I've encountered that does suggest that acts of generosity and kindness really can be wonderful sources of improved sense of well-being and even mental health. I'm not an expert necessarily in that area, but what I do also observe from our work at the center is that folks being engaged in their communities in a variety of different ways, from volunteerism to donating to serving on a board or just having sort of a neighbor-to-neighbor engagement even, those are also contributing factors to personal and community well-being. And people start to feel more in control of this very perplexing world when they are more connected to something that they care about in their community, or feel that they're able to do something positive for an issue that troubles them or that they wish was going in a better direction. Yeah. So I do think Giving Tuesday, with the way that it's made donating on a smaller scale and in a more accessible way through social media and these campaigns, is probably offering that to a lot more people than before it came around.
Mm-hmm. Is there any concern with the current economy that the donations may be down a little bit?
Yeah, I do think, we saw a very important peak that is historical, in its scope in 2020 with regard to the size of donations generally over the globe. I mean, just level of giving in general in 2020, it kind of peaked. And there were also some, extenuating circumstances during that time. Obviously, the pandemic and a lot of foundations and donors, I think, opening up funding that they weren't necessarily planning to give under normal circumstances. Since then, there's been a decline, and I think we are all aware as regular folks of the way that inflation and other factors since the pandemic have made all of our monthly budgets look a little bit less flexible. And so I think that nonprofits are experiencing both a retraction of some of that giving from a few years ago, some of the flexible giving that we saw in 2020, as well as seeing individual donors perhaps tighten their belts a little bit. I also think, though, there is a trend that the wealthier individuals in our communities, on our planet, are the ones that are giving the most in terms of overall charitable giving in the world. And that's also related to the bigger divide, actually, between the rich and not rich. And so I think that the large donors like Mackenzie Scott that we hear a lot about will still be an important source. But those smaller donations from your community members really matter in terms of engagement locally. I think it is true, though, that those are the individuals that will probably have to look a little harder at their donations this year. But I also think that I'm constantly amazed at the way that folks that don't have all that much to give will still often find a way to give to the causes that they care about.
Absolutely.
And I think it is because it makes folks feel good and that they're giving something back.
They have skin in the game. Every little bit helps.
Every cent counts.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Mary Beth,
It
thanks for
does.
being with us today, and there's still plenty of time to give.
Thank you, Mary Beth. Great to see you.
You too. Thank you so much.